Good morning, America. Miracle survival. All 103 people on board this passenger jet surviving a terrible crash in Mexico.
Everybody started just panicking, man. Death was right there.
The plane smashing into a field, the roof sheared off, the engines on the ground. The race to get everyone out before flames engulf the aircraft. And what we're now learning about the Chicago priest who was on board.
Overnight, President Trump's raucous rally, campaigning for allies, blasting his adversaries, calling himself the most popular Republican ever, and making headlines with this call for voter identification.
If you go out and you want to buy groceries, you need a picture on a card. You need ID.
Terrifying fire NATO, the newly released video showing residents trying to escape the massive car fire in California. And this morning, the new threat for the East Coast, 22 million now in the path of dangerous flash flooding.
Lucky to be alive, the woman who dated a self-described serial killer who claims he murdered 7 people, now telling her story, claiming he nearly killed her after she met him on a dating app.
When he was choking me, I can't even describe the feeling. That's when I kept feeling like this is it.
How she says she managed to escape.
And a new warning about the viral challenge inspired by Drake's song. Videos like these show people jumping out of moving cars to do a dance, landing some in the hospital. Now the government's stepping in.
Live in Times Square, this is GMA.
Okay, who's the first person who thought that was a good idea right there? Good morning, America. Hope you're well this Wednesday morning.
Well, I mean, and we all, some of us here in the studio did this dance, but we did it, on terra firma. We did not come out of a moving car. So that's how you can enjoy this dance.
Amy's the one on the
just,
That's right. Yes.
Just fine without being in a car.
That's right.
We begin, though, with some incredible images. It's a miracle, really, in Mexico. A plane packed with 103 people on board crashing. Look at this, just past the runway during takeoff and then catching fire.
Amazingly, everyone escaping, although 2 people, including one of the pilots, are in serious condition this morning. ABC's Victor Oquendo is in Mexico City, where that plane was supposed to land, with the latest. Good morning, Victor.
Good morning, Robin. That plane was supposed to come right here to Mexico City, but it never made it more than a mile from the airport in Durango, crashing during takeoff in a nearby field. Passengers describing the horrifying scene. The locals here calling it nothing short of a miracle. It was during takeoff when the 99 passengers packed into this Aeromexico flight felt the ferocious wind, the plane bouncing violently against the runway. Then everything went dark.
It happened real quick. He started picking up speed, and then it started getting windier. We bounced a couple times, and then that's when we started seeing fire.
A loud bang echoed in the cabin as the left wing hit the ground, causing the plane to lose both engines along the runway. The passengers and 4 crew scrambling to escape, one woman and her child running out through a hole in the plane, while others clambered out through the emergency slides just as smoke began to rise out of the aircraft before it exploded into flames, according to officials.
I seen a bunch of smoke, opened the door, and then when I got out, I started pulling some people out.
This video taken by first responders as emergency crews doused the fire and paramedics pack person after person into ambulances. Miraculously, not a single life lost. This passenger says she ran from the scene as fast as she could, feeling the plane might explode. The plumes of smoke could be seen for miles. People taken to the hospital for injuries, the pilot and 1 passenger in serious but stable condition, at least 1 American on board, Reverend Ezequiel Sanchez from Chicago. The Archdiocese of Chicago saying he sustained injuries, but he is alert and resting. Please pray for Father Sanchez and everyone affected by this plane crash. The airline says the plane was, quote, perfectly maintained. It was serviced in February and the crew was well rested. And this morning, government officials are visiting victims in those hospitals. An investigation has been opened up, and the company that makes the plane, Embraer, says it's sending a team of technicians to help. Amy?
All right, Victor, thanks so much for that. Let's bring in former Defense and State Department official and ABC News contributor Colonel Steve Ganyard. And Steve, good morning to you. We heard the governor of Durango saying that a gust of wind, they believe, hit the plane as it was taking off. We also know this airport is at high altitude. What do you think the contributing factors were to this plane crash?
Good morning, Amy. I think that that's still an open question. So we do know that there was some weather in the area. We do know that this is a very high airport, so it's about 6,000 feet, well above, say, Denver or Albuquerque. It's warm, so the air is thin. It takes a longer takeoff roll. So waiting to see where the weather played a factor. But what we do know is that this aircraft left the runway, veered off to the left at a very high rate of speed, and it ripped the engines off the airplane. Though you can see those sitting in the infield there. Skidded for almost a half a mile beyond the end of the runway, but was intact, which is what saved not only the crew but all the passengers on board, that the hull and the cabin stayed intact.
And does that have something to do with how the pilots handled the plane when they realized something was wrong? Because it is remarkable. We don't see outcomes like this very often, especially with images like that.
Yeah, it's still, I mean, we don't know whether it's a mechanical issue or whether it was pilot error, but the reason the airplane left the runway there is still an open question. But they did a great job. The cabin crew did a great job getting everybody off the airplane. You saw the fire there that destroyed the whole hull. That happened after they got everybody off the airplane. So thankfully, it was very, very smooth ground as the airplane plowed through the end of the runway there. And I think that was the biggest contributor to all these people getting off safely.
Yeah, I know everyone's so thankful about the outcome on that one, and the investigation continues in terms of what happened. Steve Ganyard, as always, thanks for being with us. George?
Thank you, Amy. We're going to get the latest now from President Trump. Back in campaign mode last night with a rally in Tampa, where he took on his usual targets and sowed some confusion by claiming you need a photo ID to buy groceries. Our senior White House correspondent Cecilia Vega has the story. Good morning, Cecilia.
I don't know about you, but I've never had to show an ID when I go to the grocery store. This morning, many asking, what is the president talking about?
A raucous rally in Tampa overnight.
We love you! And finally, I love you too.
President Trump there to campaign for his pick in the Republican primary for governor.
Everybody needs to support Ron DeSantis.
Instead, his political strategy, talk more about himself than the race at hand.
They just came out with a poll, did you hear? The most popular person in the history of the Republican Party is Trump. Can you believe this?
A freewheeling, unscripted speech covering everything from his election win.
Then I ran for president with no experience and I won. Isn't that interesting?
To the economy.
But everyone that greets me says, hello, Mr. President. Congratulations on what you've done for the economy. It's the talk of the world.
But this morning, it is this comment about requiring voters to have identification that is raising eyebrows.
The time has come for voter ID, like everything else. Voter ID. You know, if you go out and you want to buy groceries, you need a picture on a card. You need ID. You go out and you want to buy anything, you need ID.
The Twitter sphere going wild. Many asking, when was the last time the billionaire businessman actually set foot in a grocery store? Some writing, I work at a grocery store. You don't need an ID to buy groceries. Alcohol and tobacco, yes. Salads and chicken tenders, no. And carded for Doritos, story of my life.
All right, one more of my favorites on Twitter just because, quote, I'm looking to pick up some cereal. Do you think they'll accept a copy of my birth certificate and passport? So the White House was asked to clarify this ID thing. We are still waiting for that clarification. Perhaps it will come in today's briefing, George, if in fact there is one. In the month of July, there were only 3 briefings for a total of 57 whole minutes.
Maybe just a correction. I'm not sure that could be clarified. But meantime, Cecilia, White House Chief of Staff John Kelly just passed his 1-year mark. We'd thought that might have been his exit. Now some word that's not the case.
Yeah, a lot of reports that he was not happy here, miserable, in fact, that he'd clashed with the president, so much so that the president had floated names of possible successors to friends. The White House now says John Kelly is staying until 2020. But as we all know, George, things around here tend to be on a day-by-day basis.
If he stayed that long, would be one of the longest-serving chiefs of staff ever. Okay, Cecilia, thanks very much. We're going to move on now to the trial of Paul Manafort, who chaired President Trump's campaign. This is the first trial in the Mueller investigation. If convicted, Manafort could spend the rest of his life in prison. ABC's Kira Phillips is at the courthouse in Alexandria, Virginia. And Kira, we saw some fiery opening statements from both sides yesterday.
Well, no doubt. I mean, the question, the stakes are pretty high for Paul Manafort, no question, George, but they are also sky high for Robert Mueller, too. This is the first case the special counsel has brought to trial, and if Manafort is convicted, it would offer Mueller a powerful response and take away some of President Trump's ability to call this an aimless witch hunt, which he's done a number of times. You know, this case is already living up to the courthouse's reputation of being a rocket docket. In just one day, we saw jury selection, opening statements were completed. We even heard from the first witness. Prosecutors painting Manafort as a liar, George, who knowingly filed false tax returns, failing to report tens of millions of dollars that he made working for pro-Russia Ukrainian politicians. Manafort accused of hiding that cash in offshore bank accounts, using it to basically bankroll his lavish lifestyle, they say. Now, keep in mind, still no mention of collusion. We don't expect to hear that. And Manafort knowing that so far, knowing nothing about Russian meddling in Trump's presidential campaign that he ran, as we know, for months.
Most of the evidence is going to be documents, but the key witness, once Paul Manafort's closest colleague.
That's right, Rick Gates, star witness here, and Manafort's former business partner, who also served as the president's deputy campaign manager. He pleaded guilty to conspiracy, George, and the defense saying he's trying everything to save himself now, and that Manafort put his trust in the wrong person. He will probably take the stand any day now, and we'll be here to follow it.
Okay, Kira Phillips, thanks very much. Amy?
Well, George, now to a new warning from Facebook. The social network sounding the alarm, saying it's uncovered new efforts to potentially meddle with U.S. politics ahead of the midterm elections. Facebook has now taken down dozens of fake accounts, banning 32 of them with names like Black Elevation, Mindful Being, and Resistors. The pages were followed by more than 290,000 accounts. And while Facebook says it's not yet clear who created those pages, there is evidence of connections between those accounts and previously identified Russian Internet Research Agency pages. So far, though, they have not found links directly to Russian IP addresses. Robin.
All right, Amy, now to the showdown over 3D plastic guns. Just hours before instructions to print them were set to go online overnight for anyone to download, a judge put a temporary stop to it. Our Chief National Affairs correspondent Tom Yamas is here with more details on this. Good morning, Tom.
Robin, good morning to you. Overnight, a federal judge issuing that temporary restraining order to stop the release of blueprints to make those untraceable guns. These weapons are fully functional. You can see them there. They're made using a 3D printer, and they are just as deadly. Everything from handguns to assault-style rifles. Now, while these 3D printers are very expensive, they are becoming more broadly available, including in schools, and that's part of the cause for concern. The guns can be made without serial numbers, which means no background checks and completely untraceable. And anyone, including someone who is underage or even a serious criminal, could build them, some of them almost entirely made out of plastic, which makes them even harder to detect. Now, Senate Democrats, local leaders, gun control advocates have all sounded the alarm. More than 8 states and the District of Columbia are suing the Trump administration, arguing the so-called ghost guns would threaten public safety. Yesterday, the president weighed in, tweeting, "I am looking into 3D plastic guns being sold to the public. Already spoke to the NRA. Doesn't seem to make much sense." A pro-gun group called Defense Distributed had already posted the instructions, but after the judge's ruling, the company decided to suspend all downloads for now.
But there's some plans that are already out there, though.
Oh, that's right. Before the judge's order, that company had posted the blueprints for the AR-15. They had already done this. Thousands of people downloaded them. And just before I came out to set, there's another website claiming to post the downloads as well, and they're claiming First and Second Amendment rights.
Yeah, but the president criticized it, yet it was his State Department that approved the publishing through a settlement.
Correct, and he sort of was moving the goalpost on this. The issue right now is making these guns and downloading them. It's not selling them to the public. It's letting anyone being able to download this and then build that gun.
It's hard to imagine what could be the legitimate purpose for that, but it's really some story. Okay, Tom, thanks very much. Now to another deadly friendly fire incident in Los Angeles, where police have released this body cam video showing the victim held at knife point before officers opened fire and killed her by accident. This video comes on the heels of that deadly Trader Joe's shootout. ABC's Will Carr has the latest.
This morning, police body cam shows the heart-pounding moments just before officers shoot and kill a suspect and the hostage he's using as a human shield. Watch as 3 officers confront Guillermo Perez wielding this long knife on June 16th. Perez refuses to drop the weapon, so officers fire a non-lethal beanbag. Perez, then grabbing an innocent bystander, Elizabeth Tollison, and then putting the knife to her throat. That's when officers unload 18 shots, killing not just Perez, but his hostage, too. The video released just over a week and a half after an LAPD officer shot and killed the manager of a Trader Joe's during a gun battle with a shooting suspect. The two incidents just 6 weeks apart. According to police, it's been 13 years since an LAPD officer last killed an innocent bystander.
This was a tense situation that unfolded very quickly, and it's every officer's worst nightmare.
This morning, the chief of police says LAPD is changing certain tactics to help save lives, and he says what you saw in that video is simply tragic. Robin.
It is. All right, Will, thank you. And now to troubling new accusations against embattled CBS chief Les Moonves. A seventh woman now coming forward with allegations of misconduct, telling LA police that he sexually assaulted her, abused her in the 1980s. But prosecutors deciding not to pursue the case. Eva Pilgrim is here with those details. Good morning, Eva.
Good morning, Robin. In this latest case, the woman reported the alleged sexual assaults to police quietly before anyone else had publicly come forward, and she still hasn't been named. She now joins a list of women accusing the CBS CEO of sexually inappropriate behavior.
This morning, new sexual assault allegations surfacing against CBS CEO Les Moonves. ABC News has learned an unnamed woman went to police last February alleging Moonves, who she said was an acquaintance of hers, assaulted her 3 times over the course of 2 years in the 80s. This police document stating she encountered Moonves through employment in the television industry. The LA County District Attorney's Office declining to pursue the charges, saying the statutes of limitation from the alleged incidents from 30 years ago have expired.
It means in reality that the District Attorney's Office only has a certain amount of time to bring charges against an individual.
This latest accuser now joins 6 other women who have come forward in a New Yorker article accusing Moonves of offenses ranging from unwanted advances to sexual assault. Producer Dina Kirgo says Moonves made an unwanted invitation toward her in the early 80s, calling her to a dinner alone after she pitched him a show. She turned him down.
And the conversation ended, and he went from being very friendly to being really cold.
Kirgo says the show never launched. CBS says that Moonves has no recollection of the meeting or the phone call. This morning, Moonves remains at the helm of the network, the board of directors awaiting an independent investigation. CBS and Moonves had no comment on this latest accusation, but he has denied assaulting anyone or misusing his position of power.
And Variety magazine is reporting Moonves apparently participated in the board of directors conference call, launching that independent investigation into the allegations against him. The board is supposed to come together again for its annual earnings meeting, but that date has been postponed and now hasn't been rescheduled at this time.
Some story. Thank you, Eva. Let's go over to Rob.
Hey, George, I want to show you some fresh video emerging now from last week's big fire in Redding. And this quote-unquote fire NATO, as Justin Sanchez and his fire escaped these flames. It's not technically a tornado, but it is just as frightening, just as destructive. And, well, over 100,000 acres burned with this fire. Some cooler weather coming in the week, but not much. Time now for your Sunday Cities, brought to you by The Spy Who Dumped Me.
Critics everywhere can't stop talking about The Spy Who Dumped Me.
It was amazing. I know.
The New Yorker raves The Spy Who Dumped Me is a playful and giddy delight.
This is surreal, and I honestly think I'm in shock. Everyone's obsessed with me.
It's hilarious. Mila and Kate are a comedy dream team.
Wow, okay.
You have a real instinct for this.
We're notable. We're recognized. We have trophies, baby.
The Spy Who Dumped Me. Rated R. In theaters Friday.
On weather alert today and tomorrow. We've already seen some downpours this morning, and now for this afternoon, gusty thunderstorms will bring more heavy rain, flooding, ponding on area roads, and probably even some high winds. Same thing for tomorrow. It's a little earlier tomorrow. Today, 2 p.m. until about 11 p.m. Tomorrow, probably starting as early as 1 o'clock. And then we still have a threat for some thunderstorms on Friday. It's a 70% chance we drop it to 30 and 20 by this upcoming weekend. Today's high, 84.
We have a new headline about the self-proclaimed serial killer suspected of using a dating app to hunt for victims. Well, now the woman coming forward this morning, how she says she survived a terrifying encounter with that alleged killer.
And a new warning about the viral Kiki challenge. People trying to top each other by jumping out of moving cars to dance. And now some are suffering serious injuries. The federal government's getting involved.
This is your wake-up call. If you have